Hello, everyone, and welcome to part one of a three-part series on herbs for winter wellness. This first part, I'll be focusing on your immune system, how it works, what can we do to support it with our daily habits, as well as, of course, all the herbs and even foods that you can use to better support your immune system this coming winter. Hi, my name's Allison from The Well Cultivated Life, and I'm an herbalist and ecologist, and I really love sharing how our body systems work and how we can use herbs to help support ourselves and be more healthy. So today I'm talking about winter wellness, and it's October, but it's so important to get started on thinking about this in the fall. If you're a herbalist or a home herbalist that's interested in making your own things, now's the time to make sure that you're getting everything you need for your herbal pantry so that you're ready this winter if someone happens to get sick. And as we'll see, there are a lot of tonic herbs that you can take as well to just help keep your immune system healthy. Now, this time of year, we're moving into winter, and even though our body systems are designed to be healthy, they know what to do, they know how to work, we have a lot of differences happening in the winter. We're inside more, we are moving less, the heat is coming on, we're getting dehydrated, and so there are a lot of factors that affect our body's overall health in general and just make it harder for our systems to work as well as they can. Now, not only that, but in this day and age, there are lots of environmental toxins that we have to contend with. There's air pollution and unclean water, pesticides on our foods, and all of those sorts of things. Not to mention the mental health issues that we're dealing with as well. Things are a little bit crazy out there. So the last thing that affects our immune system and our winter health is really what a lot of people have going on, including myself, which is an underlying chronic health condition that makes our immune system, like Lyme disease or any kind of autoimmune, diabetes, things where our system's kind of already overtaxed already, somewhat overburdened, and that's taking a lot of resources. And so when some kind of crunch comes along to infect us, then we don't have the resources available. So we can help our body have a more highly functioning immune system by doing a couple of different things. So I want to start out by talking about what is the immune system anyway. And as most people think, oh, well, it's my, white blood cells and they go in and they kill off the germs, right? But there are a lot of parts to the immune system that we don't really think about. And the first is, like I was just mentioning, a whole bunch of things in our environment that can affect how well our immune system responds. Our skin is very important. Our mucous membranes, critical. And then after these first three things, we finally get to what we typically think of as the immune system, the blood cells and the other things in the immune system. And of course, the lymph system, which is where a lot of the immune system resides, and it coincides with the immune system. So exposure really matters. Our environment that we're in is so important. And this includes primarily, what are you being exposed to? Where do you work? What do you do every day? If you're a nurse or a doctor and you're in a hospital, you have the exposure of a lot more potential pathogens. If you're a teacher, you've got everybody coming into the classroom, kids sneezing and so on. And also, even if you work outside, you might be exposed to environmental pollution that's affecting your whole respiratory system and weakening this whole area, making you more susceptible to infections. And the second thing, as I said, is the skin. And the skin has three main parts that it does in relation to the immune system. And the first is that it's a physical barrier against any pathogens getting into our body. And that might be like, well, duh, obviously. But if you really think about it, there is not that many places where we can actually get pathogens into our bloodstream. So this physical barrier is really, really important. The second thing is that it's kind of pH unfriendly. It has somewhat of a lower pH than our blood. And so it creates a not so friendly environment for different types of bacteria and viruses to grow and thrive. And that's a good thing. And it also has, the third thing is these immune cell sort of sentinels. So there are a number of immune cells that are spread out across the entire skin surface, and they're monitoring and picking up signals about what's going on, what's happening here, and sending those back to the rest of the immune system. So one of the important things that we learned during the whole COVID era was we kind of went a little bit crazy with our skin, washing our hands and every time we touch a doorknob and the hand sanitizer and all that sort of thing. And so during that time, I was working at a school, and one of the teachers there decided to do an experiment to see how important is it to wash our hands. And I'm going to show you some results. They're not her results, but I found some on the web of a similar experiment. And so what they did was they took pieces of bread and they basically swiped them on different surfaces to see which one would grow the most mold. And not surprisingly, I don't think you're going to be surprised at the results. So number one in the top left here is a Chromebook, which is a type of laptop that they have in schools a lot. And they swiped it on the keyboard, covered in mold. Second one is fresh, untouched bread. The third one is dirty hands on the top right there. And there's a lot of mold growth there. And the bottom left is soap and water. And the bottom right is hand sanitizer. So you can see that the soap and water was the most effective as keeping the germs off of our hands. However, the hand sanitizer did work somewhat well, but you can see how hand sanitizer, depending on how good of a job you do with actually getting it into all the cracks and crevices, it is not going to get everything off of your hands. So wash your hands, right? We all know that already, but we might have kind of slacked up on that a little bit now that we're not so much in COVID crisis anymore. One thing I do want to say about that is that we do have to be careful about the other aspects of our skin, which is that we have a lot of helpful and beneficial bacteria that live on our skin, such as the ones that help us synthesize vitamin D. And so we really should be mindful about how much washing we're actually doing. One thing that people tend to do, and I'm surprised it's even on the shelves anymore, is to use antimicrobial soap. And even though that seems like a great idea, there's been a lot of studies that have shown that antimicrobial soap does not have enough time to actually kill off the bacteria, the amount of time that it spends on our skin surface, on our hands. And so all it really does is create microbially or antibacterially resistant microbes. So in general, the antimicrobial soap is considered to not be a good idea. If you have a special circumstance for your health, then by all means, you should be using that if that is something that's really important for your personal health. Now, the next level of our defense system is, of course, the mucous membranes. And the mucous membranes, mucus, we love it, we hate it. We mostly hate it, but it has such an important job to do. First of all, it has some immune cells and some other types of like proteins and other compounds in there that are antimicrobial. But its main job is to, when foreign substances come into our respiratory system, its job is to encase them and just grab them, bundle them up, and get them the heck out of the body. And this is why we get a runny nose. And when we get a stuffy nose, we feel even worse, and it's not moving out, and it's trying to encase these pathogens and get rid of them. And that's not happening. So one thing we need to be really careful about is to be mindful of using these a suppressant type of over-the-counter medications that are suppressing mucus and suppressing this natural body system from doing what it needs to do. Now, how can we help our mucus? All right. Well, the quality of our mucus matters. And it turns out that we make about 2 liters, which is like 2 quarts of mucus per day. We also make 2 quarts of lymph fluid per day. And so we need to stay hydrated. We already know that we need to be hydrated for a lot of different reasons, but now your mucous membranes will thank you if you are drinking enough water. And again, like I said earlier, we're getting more dried out during the winter, so hydration matters even more to keep our mucus in good working condition. Now, next, of course, if you don't, we can't always capture everything and get rid of it immediately, and some things do get into the bloodstream, and that's where our white blood cells come in. And there are a bunch of different types of white blood cells that do different things, but they're basically in 2 categories. The first are these called phagocytes, which are they're kind of around all the time, and they're going out and they're monitoring what's going on, and they're kind of a search and destroy type of mission. They go out and they find foreign particles in your blood, and they basically eat them and digest them and get rid of them. And the second, those are available all the time. But when some specific infection happens, we get these lymphocytes kicking into action. There's T cells and B cells, and they both are responsible for making antibodies, some word that we're familiar with, but an antibody is a very specific killer type of cell for a very specific type of infection. But as you can imagine, when you get sick, it takes the immune system a while to figure out, okay, what is this very specific pathogen, and how can I make a very specific cell that can easily and efficiently destroy this particular pathogen. So those are the 2 aspects of the immune system, and we want to keep them healthy. Now, the third one is, of course, the lymph system. And when the cells are killed and they're attacking everything, they bring that into our lymph system and get it out of the bloodstream and store it there until it can be moved back into the bloodstream to be released from the body. And that's why we a lot of times will get these swollen glands, because they're kind of filling up with the dead cells that have been killed off in the attack there. So that is just a basic overview of the immune system, how it works, and how so many aspects of it are important. So just real quickly, let's look at the tips and habits that you need to, or you could take on if you wanted to support your immune system. You want to stay nourished, make sure your immune system and all your other systems have all the molecules and the nutrients that they need to make the products that they need to protect you. The second is stay hydrated. Remember, 2 quarts of fluid per day are needed to make your mucus. And third, just stay away. Keep your pathogen and toxin and stress loads low. Make sure you're resting when you need to. You know all this already. So let's move into the awesome things that I love sharing, which is, let's talk about some of the herbs. And we're going to talk about 2 basic categories of herbs. Well, 3 actually, but 2 listed here. One is the tonic herbs, which is the herbs you can take on a regular basis to help keep your immune system healthy and functioning at a really good level. And then there's the acute herbs. So when you have an acute infection, you can take different herbs to help stimulate the immune system and make them help it to attack what's infecting you. So again, specific herbs, immune modulating, strengthen, support overall immune function. Whereas an immune, I actually had a cold last week because I didn't get my immune tonics ready in time. So pardon me. Then there's the immune stimulating herbs, which trigger this increased response of the immune system. So let's jump into the herbs. And the first herb that we are going to talk about is not actually a plant. It is, this first group is the immune system modulators. And we're going to be talking about not a plant, but a fungi. And these are for feeding and strengthening your immune system. And medicinal mushrooms are one of the absolute best category of herbs that you can use to help support your overall immunity. And medicinal mushrooms are kind of new on the scene, but they have been used in traditional Chinese medicine for thousands of years. And there was so much information in that system about how well they work. Now, in recent years, with their popularity, a lot more research has been conducted on mushrooms and what their specific actions are within our immune system. And that's good. We're getting more information on that. But whenever something becomes really popular, I always am concerned that it's going to lead to over harvesting, because a lot of these mushrooms grow wild. And luckily, because of the popularity, people have figured out much better ways to grow and culture mushrooms so that we don't have to go out and over harvest from our pretty fragile ecosystems that we have in most places right now. So buying a mushroom or a mushroom extract from a place that is growing it rather than wild harvesting is always recommended, just to help protect the ecosystems on our planet. So let's get into the mushrooms. The first one is reishi, which is one of the most well-known ones. And it has these polysaccharides, which are these long chain sugars. And what they do is they help to boost the production of lymphocytes. So these B cells and T cells. And so if you're taking it on a regular basis, and like I said earlier, most of us have, unfortunately, some kind of underlying chronic condition where our immune system needs extra help. And reishi is a great one that you can take on a regular basis. Now, I need to remind you that everything I'm sharing with you, don't know what happened to my other slide, but you have to do your own research. You have to make sure that you are not, if you're taking any kind of prescription medications, any of these plants that I'm going to share with you have the ability to interact with different kinds of drugs, because, they're a chemical and the plants are a chemical, and most drugs are derived from plants anyway. So you just need to be mindful. You need to do your research, work with a healthcare provider, and just make sure, especially if you're pregnant or nursing, most herbs, many herbs are not recommended during pregnancy. So be mindful of that before you go running out and buying a whole bunch of different types of mushrooms or other plants. But for the most part, what I'm sharing with you is relatively safe to use for most people. All right, so back to reishi. This one grows specifically on hemlocks. That's its favorite place to grow. So if you have a hemlock grove near you, you can go out and see if you can find some reishi. Maybe harvest it, maybe don't. But I wanted to share with you, I've got some reishi. What happens is you can get the reishi like this. Let me move my thing. Just these pieces of sliced up shelf mushroom. It's called a polypore style mushroom, and it grows on dead and decomposing plants. So you'll find it like this. You can either brew it up in a tea, you can make an extract, you can throw it in a broth that you're making, and so on. And the next one that we're going to look at is turkey tail. Now, turkey tail is another decomposing type of mushroom that grows on logs, and it helps to stimulate cytokine production, which are these signal compounds that go out, get information, and send the information back to the immune system, telling them, nope, we got a problem here. And it also helps to increase these natural killer cells, which is one of the seek and destroy type of lymphocytes. Turkey tail can also be wild harvested, but again, usually you see it as a powder, and you can make like a tea out of it, and so on. Maitake is a relative of shiitake, which a lot of people are familiar with. This helps to support immune function by just stimulating, again, the production of lymphocytes, the natural killer cells, monocytes, and T helper cells. So a lot of the different cells that we need in our immune system, it helps with that as well. A couple of plants that are really useful for keeping your immune system going is, first one is Astragalus. This is another plant from traditional Chinese medicine, and it helps to increase the macrophage activity, which is the little Pac-Man guys that go out and eat up the foreign invaders. It also supports your spleen, which is an important and the largest organ in your lymph system for filtering out the crud, the dead cells that the lymph system is picking up. And it's also supportive of your mucous membranes because it's very mucilaginous, and it helps to support the mucous membranes. You can make it into a tea. You want to brew it for a long time because it is a root, and that takes longer to get the good stuff out. And you can also, again, just like the mushrooms, also throw that into any kind of soup or broth that you might be making. Ashwaganda is a Ayurvedic plant that is very popularly used in the Ayurvedic system of medicine, and it also helps to support lymphocyte production. It's an anti-inflammatory. It decreases cortisol, and as we said earlier, decreasing your stress is good for all of your systems. And usually you'll see it in a powder like this, and so some people will just put it in a capsule, or you can make an electuary, which is when you mix the powder with honey and take it that way, which is super yummy. And of course, you can always make an alcohol extract out of it as well. And if you're a gardener and you look at this left-hand picture of the plant, you might recognize that flower. It looks very similar to a tomato because it is in the same plant family as tomatoes, the Solanaceae family. Now, lemon balm I added this one in here because it has some antiviral properties to it, but it's also a relaxing nervine. And again, one of the things we're talking about here is reducing our stress and just keeping our body happier and healthier overall. It makes a delicious tea. I like to put it in glycerin and use it that way. It's so good. You can do an alcohol extract. You can put it in a vinegar. And of course, you can just cook with it too, because it's really, really delicious. Lemon balm does have some contraindications for different medications. So it's thyroid medications. So if you're on thyroid medications, just double check and make sure, do some research whether or not lemon balm is going to be safe for you. And Schizandra berries. Now, Schizandra is another Chinese, traditional Chinese medicine herb. And you can see by the fact that I'm showing you a lot of the things from the traditional Chinese medicine is that this is an area that has been studied, used, supported for, millennia, not millions. Well, maybe millions, who knows, of years. And Schizandra is here because on this list, because not only does it help to strengthen your immune system, it also gives really high adrenal support for reducing your loads of stress. It helps to tone and strengthen the immune system. So you can make a tea out of it. It is super yummy. It's a little red berry, looks very similar to hawthorn. In fact, I forgot to label a bag one time and I couldn't tell the difference between Schizandra and hawthorn berry by the time I got it home. It's great in an extract or a cordial, an infused honey, all different ways that you can have Schizandra. Next is the immune system stimulants. So these are the plants that we're going to use when we feel sick. I put maybe used during acute illness because, again, each herb is going to be specific to you. So elder, and the plant is called elder. The plant is not called elderberry, and it's the berries that we use in an acute illness. We also use the flower for fevers, and I'll be talking about fevers in part 3 of this series. So elder, the berries, is an antiviral, especially for flu viruses, and it can be made into a syrup, a tea, and you could make an alcohol extract, but normally you would make something like a cordial, like a sipping cordial of some sort, because they are so delicious. And oxymel, which is a combination of honey and vinegar, any of those would work for elder. And you're probably going to want all of those because they're just so delicious and so nutritious as well. And garlic. Now, I'm showing you all these pictures here but I really want to just show you some plants. Usually I bring a lot of living plants onto the shows that I do because that's way better than a picture. So, of course, everyone's familiar with garlic. And the main chemical in here, well, they've discovered 18 different components of garlic that are antiviral or antimicrobial in some way. And those are only the ones that they've discovered already. So garlic, of course, is a food, and it also can be made into a garlic infused honey. That is a really, really nice way to use garlic. Have that on in the cupboard, and you get a sore throat and you're soothing your throat with honey. Awesome combination. And then you're also adding these, antimicrobial properties and helping with whatever is irritating your throat at the same time. So do not discount garlic just because you think of it as a food. It is an incredibly powerful herb, and it's also very good for just upper respiratory as well. And then, of course, the infamous or famous herb Echinacea, which is just, I don't know, it probably wins the award for the most stunning herbal plant. You can use the root, but whenever you use the root of a plant, especially something that's a long-lived perennial like Echinacea, it takes a number of years to grow out Echinacea to get to the point where the roots are big enough to harvest. So some people have started using the flowering tops, the leaves and the flower instead. And there are some of the very same properties in the flowers as there are in the leaves. And if you're using the flowers, you're not digging up the plant. It is not endangered, but it's definitely threatened in some areas because there's about 9 or 10 different varieties of Echinacea throughout. It's native to North America, the prairie areas. And so anytime we can do something that reduces the likelihood of a plant being endangered, we should do that. So if you're growing your own Echinacea, go ahead and collect the flowers. You don't need to dig up the root. And this is most often used as an extract, like an alcohol extract, a few drops here or there. And you could do a decoction, which is just a tea that gets simmered for a long, long time, if that suits you better. And that's the only way that you have access to taking this medicine. So I want to include another plant, which isn't specifically for the immune system, but it is specific to the respiratory system. And I want to include it because it is a friend of your mucus. So it's a mucus regulator, and it helps with mucus quality. It's demulcent, which means, again, it has those real soothing types of qualities to it. And that is mullein. And for this, we're primarily using the leaf. However, the whole plant can be used. The flowers are used usually to make an oil for ear infections. And so in this case, you would make a tea. You could make an alcohol extract as well. And lastly, I just want to share a set of herbs that you could take on a daily basis to year round. The other immune modulating herbs you might just want to take in the winter and fall, but these you can take year round for overall strengthening of your body systems in general. And the first one is nettles, and herbalists love nettles. Some people are shocked to hear that nettles are actually edible, but they are not only a medicinal herb, they are also a food. And in the springtime, one of the traditions that we used to have when we lived closer to the land was that we would do a spring cleanse, and nettles are a great plant for that. They are nutrient dense. They have so many different, they take up so many different types of magnesium and potassium and whatever's in the soil around you. And they also have a compound called quercetin, which is kind of an antihistamine. So they're very useful for allergies as well. And usually we take a tea of that because it's actually quite delicious. You can make an extract, and like I said, you can also eat it. Milky Oats is a nourishing tonic for the entire nervous system. I know we're not talking about the nervous system. We're talking about the immune system. But as we spoke earlier, the chronic loads of stress that we have really cause a lot of problems in all of our other systems in our bodies. And so Milky Oats is this green, if on the left side, the green buds of the oat plant before it turns into oatmeal. Now, I like oatmeal, but we're not talking oatmeal here. Oatmeal is a nourishing food, but in this case, we're talking about harvesting it before it actually goes completely to seed. And when it's in this stage, it's milky, like you can squeeze that and some milk comes out of it. And that is the state you want. Now, if you can't find Milky Oats, and so it makes it awesome tea. And I have used it as an extract as well. If someone's really depleted, you're going to give them the tea and the extract to help really revitalize their nervous system. It takes about a month before you start seeing results from it, but it's definitely a good one to have around. If you can't find the Milky Oats, you can use the oat straw or whole oat tops if you can find those as well. Calendula is a beautiful edible flower. It makes a delicious and beautiful tea. It's one of my very favorite plants. You can also make it into an oil for all kinds of skincare. But the main reason why I listed it here is because it is also a gentle lymph support as well. And as we saw, the lymph system is a very key part of the whole immune response, the place of production of the lymphocytes and so on. So putting calendula into your daily tea is an excellent idea. All right. That's all that I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, I should put this back up. Thank you for joining me. And I hope you'll go out and get some herbs for your winter wellness. But remember to always do your research and be aware of the drug interactions and pre-existing conditions that you might have. There's a lot of information on the web you can search to try to find out, especially if you're on a prescription, is this an interaction with what I want to take? Thank you for watching. Be sure to follow me on social at Cultivate My Life. Subscribe to my channel and like so you can get more information about all of the other upcoming herbal programs that I'm sharing here. Take care, everybody. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.